You also mentioned the trap of language and the importance of knowing etymology. So while we are in the process of experimenting with telepathy, what would you suggest around using language differently?
Well, at the end of the game, the king and the pawn go back in the same box. So the language, I have the documents. If people want to know more about this, they can jump into something like the Innerversity, where I'm talking deep about language. But the conclusion of it is Hebrew, first of all, Yiddish. Actually, when you drop it all down on itself, it creates a tetrahedron or a Star of David. Okay? So this means that language is actually a symbol. So the same thing with English, we found the code of English, and it basically is a hexagon with a circle around it. So a hexagon with six lines. And that every single letter in the English language can be written on that hexagon as it was originally written. So what this means is that the language is a hex. It is a spell. A lot of people have uncovered that already. I've actually was one of the pioneers of certain aspects of how to look at that even deeper. There were people that came before me like Jordan Maxwell. But just like in the code of the matrix, I started pointing out other things like if you want to know sequences and codes of humans, like how they create bodies, like notice how if you take this word J, right? And then you add any letter behind it, you can start to basically cipher through an entire energy as it runs through the world. So let's say you go Ja, and then you go Jab, then you go Jack, then you go Jad or Jed. And then what you do is you take the vowel that's in the middle. So you have three letters. This is simple ciphering. You have three letters there. So that letter, that vowel in the middle, you can keep interchanging that vowel, and you can trace this letter all the way down through this entirely different, basically an occult story that's being acted out through humans. Like for instance, the Jack is the Joker. Like that's actually, there's other signs on the dimension that are going on with real people. Like when Jim Carrey, who's a JC, when he came out of his Jokerish, remember he was the first Joker. He's the first card on the tarot deck. But somehow, instead of stepping off the cliff like all Jokers do, which is why Heath Ledger died and many of the other Jokers died, he somehow came into an awareness. Okay. Mm-hmm. And then this is sending across the dimension really quick saying, hey, the fool can actually reach now. The gate is connected. The fool can even now go into the highest stage. You see what I mean? So that's kind of how that really works. And then you get, let's say, go before you got Jeb. Jeb is the Lord of the earth. Jeb is really the father in the Masonic temple. And that's one of the main pillars, okay? And so then you keep going. So then when you trace this letter back, J, you realize that actually J and I and Y are all the same letters because they can actually be interchanged in many words and definitely say phonetically the same thing, but also look the same. So then there basically becomes a story. Then you start realizing certain things, like every time you add an S to certain things, it always takes on a sneaky kind of scenario. Like literally the word has an energy that comes with it that actually sometimes even connects or zoomorphize as something like a snake, because a snake's not a dragon. It's like there's different stages in the symbolism. The snake as a symbol by itself is always what's meant as the low foundation, the earth, all of that extra. It goes on and on and on. But when it's given wings, this is what you would see in evolution, if you may, that the birds or the snakes become the birds. Basically, the scales become the feathers. That's why you see birds, they still got the scaly feet, like the feet that were on snakes that you could see sometimes still on snakes. So you realize that there is some truth to this thing they call the evolution, but nothing like how they wrote it. But there's quite a few more things, like that whole symbol of the fish coming out of the ocean. And then they talk about, oh, this is Darwin's theory of evolution. And then everyone does their best to debunk it, talks about how it's completely stupid. Anyone, black, white, whatever, hey, it doesn't work because of how he encoded it to really explain actually everything that's coming from, that's on the land came from the ocean first, because the ocean is the mother. And then so the trees, you can find their seeds, the geometry, like the pentagram and all that, horses, the horsefish, all of this, the heart. When you pull a mollusk out of some certain kind of mollusk out of their shell, they're like just hearts, like what the human heart is. So then you get to realizing that actually the PlayStation, if you may, of the ancients was creating these forms that you see around us that are so unique. Right now, look how much, and our creation is fertile still. But man, when we were in the overmind, that's when all of us are connected to the ship together. We're there now. But when it's all connected, now we have the full potential. So that's why there was always like a fervor for making sure that we all connected and to somehow become the reason why everyone connected. Because it's like you solve a formula that can replicate across realms that you've never even seen.